Welcome to Design Domination, where you'll gain confidence, clarity, and a competitive edge in a crowded marketplace so you can dominate your competition. Hi, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Colleen Grotzer, and in this episode of Design Domination, I'm going to set straight two very commonly misused terms when it comes to accessibility. Stay tuned to find out how using the right terms could save you from some potential legal trouble. Now, when you do any work for a client, especially accessibility work, it's crucial to have a contract that clearly sets expectations for both parties. And it's also extremely important to use the correct terms when you talk to clients and when you write your proposals and contracts. And that's because you don't want to put yourself on the hook for something outside of your expertise, such as something legal, for example. You know, what if the client gets sued for non-compliance and then comes to you because, well, you said they were in compliance? Well, unfortunately, most designers and developers and clients use these two accessibility terms incorrectly. And so that could get you in hot water. So the two terms that I'm going to talk about are compliance and conformance. Okay. And I have to give my disclaimer that I am not a lawyer. I don't play one on the podcast, and none of this is legal advice. Okay. So now that that's out of the way, a lot of clients, web designers and developers, and document designers will use the terms compliance and conformance interchangeably when they talk about accessibility. But the terms are so misused, as I mentioned, and they really actually mean different things. Clients may ask for their website or for a document to be made, ADA compliant or Section 508 compliant or WCAG compliant, for example. You need to make sure you're using the right term, though, because it's the basis of the work that you're promising to do for them, and it needs to be in your proposals and contracts. Let's talk about compliance, the one I hear all the time. Now, when it comes to accessibility, compliance refers to complying with an accessibility law. And that could be a federal law, such as Section 508, or the Americans with Disabilities Act, or a state law, such as California's AB 434. Governments and certain public and private organizations might be required to comply with one or more accessibility laws, depending on their size and some other criteria. Now, an organization could also potentially face a lawsuit involving legal fines and fees if they don't comply. A lawyer or judge, though, would have to look at several factors and then determine whether that organization is in compliance or not. Okay, and many accessibility laws specify how to comply with the law when it comes to website or document accessibility. So, for instance, they might specifically state conformance to, certain WCAG standards, WCAG 2.0 AA or WCAG 2.1 AA, for example. And oftentimes there's a lot of gray area. But regardless, it is their responsibility to comply with a particular law. And so if you go promising compliance, then you're opening up your business to potential legal problems. Like if the client gets slapped with a lawsuit, for example, well, but you promised compliance. The thing is that compliance usually goes beyond creating that accessible document or website. That organization has other responsibilities under the law that have nothing to do with you or a document or website that you might create for them or fix for them. For example, an organization may have a physical location and they need to comply with the ADA, and they might have to make the entrance wheelchair accessible. Okay, now the other word you don't hear as often is conformance. That is when an organization adopts accessibility standards such as WCAG for a website or document. Now, a law may mention WCAG, but WCAG is not a law. And a lot of people think it's a law. It's actually just a set of accessibility standards that are recognized worldwide, and they're mentioned in many laws. WCAG conformance may be one small part of compliance with a law. A document or a website that conforms to a level of WCAG does not also mean that an organization is in compliance with a law. Because like I mentioned earlier, there are other factors involved. The other thing I sometimes hear from clients is a request to meet both A and AA. Well, AA conformance includes A, and then AAA conformance includes AA and A. It's important to note, too, that just because a site conforms to WCAG does not mean it's accessible or user-friendly for that matter. And the opposite is true, too. It also doesn't mean that a site that doesn't conform to WCAG is not accessible or doesn't conform. So what does all this mean for contractual obligations? Well, your client is going to expect that your work meets some sort of accessibility standard in order to help them with any legal requirement that they might have to comply. So you'll want to mention, WCAG 2.2 AA for websites, for example, or WCAG 2.2 AA and PDF UA for documents, for example. There needs to be some explicit expectation that you include in your proposals and your contracts about what standard you're going to look to meet. Now, I leave out any mentions of compliance and I stick to conformance instead. I also never promise anything to be 100% accessible either, especially a website. And even the W3C addresses this. They say, although content may satisfy all success criteria, the content may not always be usable by people with a wide variety of disabilities. Now, this topic, being 100% accessible, this topic is also something that I will talk about more on in the future as well. So in short, think of compliance and conformance this way. Organizations comply with laws. Digital assets, such as websites and documents, conform to accessibility standards. Now, as a designer or developer, you are not in the position to decide if a client legally complies with the law. Leave that to the courts to decide. Now, having said that, even if a client does not have to comply with an accessibility law, it doesn't mean they won't benefit from accessibility. And in fact, there are so many benefits of accessibility for clients to make their websites and documents accessible. And I went into those in episode 149, the business case for accessibility. There are also so many benefits to accessibility for you as a document designer or web designer or developer. So be sure to check out episode 181 on the 10 things you should know about accessibility. Give me 5 minutes to make the case. And if that doesn't do it, then check out episode 112, 8 Reasons Designers Should Care About Accessibility. Are you confused about where to get started with accessibility? Check out my free guides, podcast episodes, free training, and courses. Go to creative-boost.com/accessibility.